were sewage channels covered by concrete with 58 holes for seating. There were 3 barracks with washing facilities or toilets to serve 16 residential barracks in BIA, and 6 washrooms /latrines for 32 barracks in BIA, BIIC, BIID, and BIIE. 126. Primo Levi described a 1944 Auschwitz 3-washroom latrine in the men's quarantine camp, Sector BIA, Auschwitz 2003. It is badly lighted, full of drafts, with the brick floor covered by a layer of mud. The water is not drinkable, it has a revolting smell and often fails for many hours. The walls are covered by curious didactic frescoes. For example, there is the good Hafterling, prisoner, portrayed stripped to the waist, about to diligently sophist-sheared and rosy cranium, and the bad Hafterling with a strong Semitic nose and a greenish color bundled up in his ostentatiously stained clothes with abet on his head, who cautiously dips a finger into theater of the wash basin. Under the first is written, "So this do rain, like this you are clean," and under the second, "So
Yes, I had to check my cell phone. I like to read it, so I'll not just do this to record a video. So let's read from here. Of course, I like to read it, but I cannot remember all this. I have to read it in the future again.
Replace. 113. About 100 survived to the camp's liquidation. They were forced on a death march and were trained to the camp at Mauthausen, where 3 days later they were asked to step forward during roll call. No one did, and because the SS did not have their records, several of them survived. 114. Tattoos and triangles. Auschwitz clothing. Uniquely at Auschwitz, prisoners were tattooed with a serial number on their left breast for Soviet prisoners of war, 115, and on the left arm for civilians. 116, 117. Categories of prisoner were distinguishable by triangular pieces of cloth, German, Wilkel, sewn into on their jackets below their prisoner number. Political prisoners, Schutzhäftlinge or SCH, mostly Poles, had a red triangle, while the criminals, Berufsverbrecher or BV, were mostly German and wore a green. Asocial prisoners, Asocial or ASO, which included vagrants, prostitutes and the Roma, wore black. Purple was for Jehovah's Witnesses, International by Belfaschervereinigung or IBV, S and Pink for gay men, who were mostly German. 118, an estimated 15,000 gay men prosecuted under German Penal Code Section 175, prescribing sexual acts between men, were detained in concentration camps, of whom an unknown number were sent to Auschwitz. 119, Jews wore a yellow badge, the shape of the Star of David, overlaid by a second triangle if they also belonged to a second category. The nationality of the inmate was indicated by a letter stitched on tough cloth. A racial hierarchy existed, with German prisoners at the top. Next were non-Jewish prisoners from other countries. Jewish prisoners were at the bottom. 120, transports. Freight car inside Auschwitz to Birkenau, near the gatehouse, used to transport deportees. 2014, 121. Deportees were brought to Auschwitz crammed in wretched conditions into goods or cattle wagons, arriving near a railway station or at one of several dedicated trackside ramps, including one next to Auschwitz I. The Altgewden ramp, Old Jewish ramp, part of Auschwitz Freight Railway Station, was used from 1942 to 1944 for Jewish transports. 121, 122, located between Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II. Arriving at this ramp meant a 2.5 kilometers journey to Auschwitz II and the gas chambers. Most deportees were forced TOEIC, accompanied by SS men, and a car with a Red Cross symbol carried the Zyklon B, as well as an SS doctor in case officers were poisoned by mistake. Inmates arriving at night, or who were too weak to walk, were taken by truck. 123, work on a new railway line and ramp, right, between sectors BI and BII in Auschwitz II, was completed in May 1944 for the arrival of Hungarian Jews. 122, between May and early July 1944. 124, the rails led directly to the area around the gas chambers. 121, life for the inmates. The day began at 4:30 a.m. for the men, an hour later in winter, and earlier for the women, when the block supervisor sounded a gong and started beating inmates with sticks to make them wash and use the latrines quickly. 125, there were few latrines and there was a lack of clean water. Each wash house had to service thousands of prisoners. In sectors BIA and BIP in Auschwitz II, 2 buildings containing latrines and washrooms were installed in 1943. These contained troughs for washing and 90 faucets. The toilet facilities were sewage channels covered by concrete with 58 holes for seating. There were 3 barracks with washing facilities or toilets to serve 16 residential barracks in BIA, and 6 washrooms /latrines for 32 barracks in BIA, BIIC, BIID, and BIIE. 126. Primo Levi described a 1944 Auschwitz III washroom latrine in the men's quarantine camp, Sector BIA, Auschwitz II, 2003. It is badly lighted, full of drafts, with the brick floor covered by a layer of mud. The water is not drinkable, it has a revolting smell and often fails for many hours. The walls are covered by curious didactic frescoes. For example, there is the good Hafterling, prisoner, portrayed stripped to the waist, about to diligently surface sheared and rosy cranium, and the bad Hafterling with a strong Semitic nose and a greenish color bundled up in his ostentatiously stained clothes with a belt on his head, who cautiously dips a finger into theater of the wash basin. Under the first is written, "So bist du rein, like this you are clean," and under the second, "So jest du ein, like this you come to a bathand," and lower down, in doubtful French but in Gothic script, "La proprete, c'est la santé, cleanliness is health." 127. Prisoners received half a liter of coffee substitute or a herbal tea in the morning, but no food. 128. A second gong heralded roll call, when inmates lined up outside in rows of 10 to be counted. No matter the weather, they had to wait for the SS to arrive for the count. How long they stood there depended on the officer's mood, and whether there had been escapes or other events attracting punishment. 129. Guards might force prisoners to squat for an hour with their hands above their heads, or hand out beatings or detention for infractions such as having a missing button or an improperly cleaned food bowl. The inmates were counted and recounted. 130. After roll call, to the sound of Arbeitskommandos formieren, form work details, prisoners walked to the place of work, 5 abreast, to begin a working day that was normally 11 hours long, longer in summer and shorter in winter. 132. A prison orchestra, such as the Women's Orchestra of Auschwitz, was forced to play cheerful music as the workers left the camp. Capos were responsible for the prisoners' behavior while they worked, as was an SS escort. Much of the work took place outdoors at construction sites, gravel pits, and lumber yards. No rest periods were allowed. One prisoner was assigned to the latrines to measure the time the workers took to empty their bladders and bowels. 133. Lunch was 3/4 of a liter of watery soup at midday, reportedly foul-tasting, with meat in the sup 4 times a week and vegetables, mostly potatoes and rutabaga, 3 times. The evening meal was 300 grams of bread, often moldy, part of which the inmates were expected to keep for breakfast the next day, with a tablespoon of cheese or marmalade, or 25 grams of margarine or sausage. Prisoners engaged in hard labor were given extra rations. 134. A second roll call took place at 7 in the evening, in the course of which prisoners might be hanged or flogged. If a prisoner was missing, the others had to remain standing until the absentee was found or their reason for the absence discovered, even if it took hours. On the 6th of July, 1940, roll call lasted 19 hours because a Polish prisoner, Tadeusz Wijowski, had escaped. Following an escape in 1941, a group of prisoners was picked out from the escapees' barracks and sent to Block 11 to be starved to death. 135. After roll call, prisoners retired to their blocks for the night and received their bread rations. Then they had some free time to use the washrooms and receive their mail, unless they were Jews. Jews were not allowed to receive mail. Auschwitz II brick barracks, Sector BI, 2006. 4 prisoners slept in each partition, known as a butt. 131. Auschwitz II wooden barracks, 2008 curfew, nighttime quiet, was marked by a gong at 9 o'clock. 136. Inmates slept in long rows of brick or wooden bunks or on the floor, lying in and on their clothes and shoes to prevent him from being stolen. 137. The wooden bunks had blankets and paper mattresses filled with wood shavings. In the brick barracks, inmates lay on straw. 138. According to Miklos Niasili, 800 to 1,000 people were crammed into the superimposed compartments of each barracks. Unable to stretch out completely, they slept there both lengthwise and crosswise, with one man's feet in another's head, neck, or chest. Stripped of all human dignity, they pushed and shoved and bit and kicked each other in an effort to get a few more inches space in which to sleep a little more comfortably. For they did not have long to sleep. 139. Sunday was not a work day, but prisoners had to clean the barracks and take their weekly shower. 140, and were allowed to write, in German, to their families, although the SS censored the male inmates who did not speak German with trade bread for Hilf. 141. Observant Jews tried to keep track of the Hebrew calendar and Jewish holidays, including Shabbat, and the weekly Torah portion. No watches, calendars, or clocks were permitted in the camp. Only 2 Jewish calendars made in Auschwitz survived to the end of war. Prisoners kept track of the days in other ways, such as obtaining information from newcomers. 142 Women's Camp. About 30% of the registered inmates were female. 143 The first mass transport of women. 999 non-Jewish German women from the Ravensbrück concentration camp arrived on the